I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain.io for Investment Pitch Media and FinTech News Network. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Tushar Aggarwal from LuneX Ventures, an early stage VC startup from Southeast Asia. I'm really happy to have you on the show. Tushar, welcome.
Thank you, Ashton, for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. If you would start out with a little bit of your background into how you got into the finance industry and then how you ventured into crypto as well.
Absolutely. So I moved to Singapore. I'm originally from India. I moved to Singapore in 2010 for university. I was majoring in banking and finance. When I was graduating, wanted to make the big bucks. So I was looking at consulting or investment banking. Got into consulting. So I was at PwC for a couple of years. Moved to a boutique consulting firm, a French consulting firm, which was opening a Singapore office. So I was one of the early employees, kind of built out that for like about 2.5 years. End of 2016, I was working as a consultant to the banking industry. So banks were starting to kind of explore what blockchain is and if they could leverage that somehow internally for things like settlement. So that's how I learned about Bitcoin. Started buying before researching. I had a bit of cash to play around with, and by November 2017, I'd quit my job and started a podcast. I run a podcast. It's called Decrypt Asia. Through the podcast, I write for Tech in Asia quite a bit, which is the equivalent of TechCrunch in this part of the world. And then through that, got connected with a bunch of VCs, and that's how I landed up working and building out LuneX Ventures.
That's great. Sounds like quite the journey to get where you are today, and it sounds super exciting.
It's been a ride.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about LuneX Ventures and what you guys are doing right now.
Sure. So LuneX Ventures is a crypto venture capital fund. We're backed by our parent company is a traditional VC called Golden Gate Ventures. So Golden Gate Ventures kind of built out the Southeast Asian startup ecosystem. It was started in 2011 with a $10 million fund. And Golden Gate is on its third fund, which is a $100 million fund, investing mostly in seed and Series A startups in Southeast Asia. So Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, and a few other countries in this region. They did an equity investment in Omise. Could not participate in the Omise Go token sale because the fund mandate didn't allow Golden Gate to invest in the token sale. And that's how the idea of a dedicated crypto fund was born. Also because the skill sets required to run a crypto fund is a little bit different. So they felt the need to have a dedicated fund. So that was how LuneX was born.
That's awesome. And that sounds like you guys are doing really well with Omise. So I see you've been in the finance industry for a while, before the crypto as well. Do you think you could give your thoughts on the current environment of the cryptocurrency industry? Because in the past year or so, a lot more institutional investors have gotten involved in the industry, more venture capitals, and there's definitely been a progression of a lot more venture capitalist firms popping up all around the world. So maybe your thoughts on where we're headed and where we've been to and where we're at right now.
Sure. I mean, I think so. There were obviously people who got in, and there were mostly technologists who got in really, really early. So that was like the initial wave. And then I think kind of 2016, 2017 was the time when a lot of the other folks kind of got into the industry. And 2017 was obviously the year when it was all about retail investors, all about decentralization and giving the power back to the masses. And obviously, a lot of the token sales did super well. Lots of people made lots of money. And the market got heated up a little bit. And so that's what we've been seeing over like pretty much all of this year, where the market sort of still cooling down, sort of stable right now, but still kind of on a downward trend. But yeah, I think what some of the VCs kind of understood was that the crypto and the blockchain ecosystem could potentially disrupt their business in terms of raising capital. And instead of getting disrupted, they've kind of taken it kind of heads on and tried to capitalize on the opportunity that this industry provides. But again, a lot of the VCs are trying to do it in a more sort of regulated manner, and that's what we try to do at LuneX Ventures as well. So we spent like 9 months working with 4 different law firms, tax advisors, auditors, fund administrators, cybersecurity experts, Monetary Authority of Singapore, to have a fully licensed crypto fund. So it's taken us a while, but I think what kind of the institutional investors bring is a little bit more credibility, into the ecosystem in general. Obviously, Andreessen, one of the leading VCs in the world, has a dedicated $300 million crypto fund, which is a huge validation for the industry in general.
Definitely. Huge validation, and I'm glad that you guys set out the foundation properly. That's really important, especially in this sort of self-regulated gray area zones on the retail and utility side of these tokens. And really, this industry is so new that it's always good to cover all the bases, right?
100%, 100%. And, if you want to bring in institutions and if you want to bring in institutional money, like we speak to a lot of family offices, some high net worth individuals, for them to be comfortable investing into a fund like ours, we have to make sure that our documentation, our licenses, our custody is all in order. And so, it basically helps more inflow of capital into the industry if you kind of structure it the right way.
That's great. So what are your guys' current goals right now with LuneX Ventures in Southeast Asia?
Yeah. So just from a timeline perspective, so we started the process of setting up LuneX Ventures in November. It took us 9 months until August to basically structure the fund and make sure that we were fully compliant. We did like a friends and family fundraise in September until middle of October. So we just did our first capital call. So we're bringing in the first round of capital into the fund. I think 1st of November onwards, we're going to be able to start deploying that capital as well. And so our goal is to kind of, start backing some of the best deals that we see are on the equity side. So we have a decent pipeline of companies that we want to kind of deploy capital to. While fundraising, we've simultaneously in parallel been working on these deals. And so we want to kind of, make sure that those deals go through in sort of the first couple of weeks of November. And so we'll be doing press releases around those investments that we make. But yeah, that's kind of what our focus is. In parallel, we'll keep fundraising. So we're targeting somewhere between a $10 to $20 million fund. And I think that's like a sweet spot for us. It's a small fund. We can deploy a small fund better than a bigger fund.
That's awesome. Sounds like you guys are getting onto things, in the next week or two. So that's really exciting to hear. You did mention
Absolutely.
Equity investments. What is this strictly your guys' investment strategy with LuneX? Are you guys investing strategically equity in blockchain companies, or are there utility tokens or security tokens? Are you guys looking at security tokens as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole reason why LuneX was born was to have a more flexible mandate. So our parent company, Golden Gate, has a regional mandate because of the kind of companies that they invest in, whereas the nature of the industry that we're in is such that your investments need to be global in nature, because innovation can happen anywhere, and then you can kind of spread around the world. In terms of investments, we kind of look at 3 buckets. So first is the equity bit that we spoke about. The second is we can hold some of the larger cryptocurrencies and tokens of some of the protocols that we fundamentally believe in over a longer term horizon. And the third is kind of ICOs, STOs, and everything else, depending on how the market evolves. So we don't define what the percentages of allocations are going to be within these 3 buckets. In general, the best deals that we see are on the equity side, both in the region where we get access to seed stage deals, and also globally where we make investments somewhat at a later stage, and those are more strategic in nature in terms of companies from the US and Europe who want to expand to this part of the world and kind of see us as a strategic partner / investor in Asia. As far as security tokens are concerned, I mean, I think we're keeping an active lookout for those. I think there's going to be some sort of regulation around those, but I think it's still kind of early days. Right now, the best deals that we see are on the equity side.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. And when you guys are looking at making equity investments, what are the top things that you guys look for as a firm when you're looking at that investment?
Yeah. So I think equity investments, I think in the space are kind of the easiest to make as well, because it's relatively easier it's high risk for sure because these are seed stage investments for the most part. But yeah, obviously, the regular things like, what the market size is, which becomes a little bit harder to define as well in this industry. But I think the most important thing is definitely the team, right? What the background of the team has been, what have they done in the past? Have they been founders before? Are they second-time founders? Do they do they hold like a PhD in computer science and have been researching the crypto space for the past 5 years? Or, they've been in the space for like 1 year and are kind of new. And depends on the kind of business as well, right? So we're looking at like smart contract auditing services, custodial solutions, accounting solutions for the crypto industry. And so those are the kind of companies that we think are the most fascinating at the moment. So it's just, I guess, about execution. I mean, there's definitely a need for these companies. It's about which team can,
Definitely.
have the best execution.
I agree. The team is totally key. So that's good, definitely good to do your due diligence before making any investments. And I'm sure you guys take quite an amount of time before you close a deal, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So what's your sentiment on the market in the blockchain industry moving forward in 2019? Are you optimistic, neutral, or pessimistic?
Well, I've a big part of my personal net worth is in crypto, and I'm betting my career on the industry succeeding. So I'm relatively optimistic. I think, like we discussed, I think the market's cooled down a little bit. There's lots of interesting developments happening, which are not necessarily being reflected in the prices. So there hasn't been too much price action, but there's on the development side, there's quite a bit of activity that's happening. Like we speak to a lot of the developers, a lot of the working groups for different protocols, so we kind of keep track of what's happening. And a lot of the projects are shipping out good products. They're trying to acquire more users, trying to make sure that things get like some of the scalability projects, for example, are trying to make sure that it is possible for applications that are built on top of these protocols to have massive user bases, unlike something like Ethereum. But in general, I think overall, high level speaking, very, very optimistic. Personally speaking, I think on the fund side, as like we don't mind if the market kind of continues to be a little bit bearish. It kind of helps us to it gives us more time to kind of build relationships globally, expand our network globally. It gives us, I mean, we're all learning as well, so it gives us more time to kind of learn as well, and plant all the seeds globally for sort of the next sort of bull run that everyone keeps talking about.
For sure. There's no need to rush into it. And people know,
yeah.
the people that are working hard on these blockchain projects are not fazed by whether there's a bear market or a bull market. They're working just as hard to achieve those goals out in the industry. So, and I'm sure you guys are doing the same.
Yeah, that's what we try to, as long as you can put food on the table.
You got it. So where do you picture LuneX Ventures 6 months from now and 1 year from now?
Yeah. So LuneX Ventures is a 5-year closed-ended fund. So we're trying to take the VC approach. So we lock in our investors for 5 years. Kind of helps us align better with the entrepreneurs. Helps us get access to better deals as well. I think 6 months from now, like I said, we're just bringing in the first set of capital, and we're going to start. I mean, hopefully in the next 6 months, we would have done a good 4 to 5, 6 deals. And like I said, our mandate allows us to kind of invest in some of the tokens trading in the secondary markets as well. So we'll pick some of those as well because they're trading at relatively fairer valuations compared to last year. And I think 1 year from now, yeah, I mean, we obviously like 6 months from now, hopefully we've closed out all our fundraising. But definitely 1 year from now, we don't want to spend too much time fundraising. We want to spend time kind of researching and investing. That's what we enjoy. But yeah, I mean, after we make those investments, our goal will be kind of add value to our portfolio companies, help them out, help them get clients, help them secure partnerships, help them expand to other regions if they want to, help them with their second round or third round of funding if that's what's required. So I think that's what's going to be our focus in the next sort of 6 months to a year.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And if viewers are looking to get involved with LuneX Ventures, what's the best way to get involved or contact you?
Yeah, we do have so the best place is lunex.vc. We just have a landing page at the moment. We're working to kind of get our website up and running. But if you go to lunex.vc, there's links to our Telegram and links to our email. You can email me at tushar@lunex.vc. in case you're an entrepreneur, in case you want exposure to this asset class. Yeah.
Awesome.
If you're an investor and if you want exposure to this asset class.
Great. Thank you so much, Tushar Aggarwal from LuneX Ventures. I appreciate you coming on the show today, and I'm looking forward to following up, in the next few months to see where you guys are at and what kind of deals you guys have closed. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ashton, for having me. I hope to see you at one of the conferences again soon in Asia.
Yes, likewise.